So I'm joined once again by Daryl Carter. We're going to be previewing the championship races for the Cheltenham Festival. We're also going to chuck in the Ryanair and the Mares Hurdle because we'll be talking about those types of horses too. There will be a full Cheltenham Festival preview coming out. We're going to hopefully try and get a live one done for Facebook. And then there's a couple of other bits that we're working on together as well, which will be some real good content for the festival. So without further ado, welcome, Daryl. How are you doing, mate?
Very well, Dave. Very, very well. Good day on the horses today. Good betting day. Yeah, I'm good. I know a lot of these races are being done to death at the moment, but I definitely think it's worth keep going through them. Just keep talking things out because you end up coming up with certain little bits and pieces that you might have missed the time before. So I know a lot of previews and that are happening and going on, but it's just definitely worth talking everything out because you know you can drum it into yourself then. And you can put yourself off a horse, or you can side with a horse that's probably got a better chance just because you've gone through it so many times. So it's a good thing. I'm glad to be here, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Well, yeah, I echo exactly what you said there, and especially with all the previews that be coming up, even the ones that we're going to be involved in. There'll be so much information. There'll be so much talking. Loads of these people are good at sort of steering you in the direction of the way that they're thinking. What tends to happen is you watch a load of these, there'll be a couple of nuggets that will come out, but there'll be loads of previews that you might watch where it changes your opinion, which is a terrible thing. We sort of know where we are with it, but you are right. It's good to keep thrashing it out, especially with experts like us. We know what we're talking about. Then you'll watch rookie previews where you get trainers, jockeys involved, where they're involved in it, so they're sort of one-sided a bit with their opinions. They make a bit of a case. And we're looking at it from a sort of a value perspective as well, whereas they don't really care what the price of the horse is. They're just talking about it in terms of a chance of winning the race. So without further ado, we'd like to say those are the races we could do. The championship races, we'll chuck the Ryanair, we'll chuck the Mares in as well. But I think we'll just do it. We'll go Chasers first, and I think it's a good place to start at the Gold Cup because normally that tends to be the last one talked about in sort of chronological order. But it is the masterpiece of Cheltenham. It is the highlight of the festival, and this year is shaping up to be an absolutely stonking renewal. So Chris's Dream won today over at Gowran Park. His price has shortened up a little bit for the Gold Cup. I don't think he's good enough. Shattered Love's price is coming a little bit from a massive thing. Gordon Elliott talked her up last year as being a potential Gold Cup type, so I think it'll be another one of them that maybe a few each way people will be sniffing about with it. But it seems like it's fairly set where the market's going to be now. Santini's obviously shortened up since the Cotswold Chase. I think he's deserved to be shortening up. Delta Works shortening up nicely as well. And I think once Davy Russell confirms that he's going to ride him, because why would you want to sit on Presenting Percy again? I mean, once he confirms that, his price will shorten up a bit. Lost in Translation has been about the same price since the King George, and that's probably always going to stay the same. So I think the market is pretty much about where it is. I don't think there's going to be too many horses that are going to shorten up. Don't think there's going to be too many horses that are going to drift out on the day. But where do you stand on it? Who do you think is the horse that's going to win the Gold Cup if we were to take prices out of the equation?
At the moment, I'm with Delta Work. Look, there's only a handful of horses in here, really, if you're going to go by the history and stats and whatnot, that can actually win this race. Mm-hmm. I mean, Adam Photo is a big ask for him to come back and win 2 Gold Cups. So you're looking at the likes of Santini, Lost in Translation, and Delta Work. The King George winners have got a terrible record in the Gold Cup, so I would avoid Clanders Oboe. Don't fall into that trap that a lot of people fell into last year. You can really tear that King George form apart as well. So, I wouldn't be siding with him. Kenwood is jumping out. There's a lot of horses in here. It just seems like there's a lot of dead wood in here that really can't win the race. I think the 3 definitely, or the 4 to focus on, are the 4 at the top of the market. And I think the market's adjusted itself quite rightly now. But I think Delta Work is such an improved horse from that RSA run last year. And we watched the RSA together at Cheltenham. You know how furious I was with Davy Russell on the ride he gave him behind 17. I thought he should have gone for it at the second last and just cleared away. But he waited and got caught. His jumping was really scrappy back then. Nowadays, on his last 2 victories at Leopardstown, it really has shored up. He doesn't clatter through fences, and he's got unlimited petrol. I really, really like him. I can see the angle with Santini, especially with the form angle with Delta Work. But like I say, I think Delta Work was better than that run in the RSA. For me, Santini's just a little bit too slow. But the closer it does get, and I have slagged him off quite publicly, but the closer it does get, the more I am worried about him. to be honest with you, because he could have so much more to come. It's just what we've seen of him doesn't warrant him to be a 4-1 shot for the Gold Cup, in my opinion. Sorry, I will give it to you in a minute. Lost in Translation is the other one. Really impressive this term, especially. I think his form beating Bristol de Mai at Haydock is much better than Santini's form beating Bristol de Mai in the Cotswold Chase. Bristol de Mai at Haydock jumped fluently, jumped beautifully, like he does on a flat track, and he just doesn't get home at Cheltenham. He doesn't stay the trip at Cheltenham. So, and the fact that he got to within, 3 and 3/4 lengths of Santini suggests to me that Santini must be really slow. I think if Delta Work and Lost in Translation are two that interest me the most, and I think they're fair prices at 6 and 7 to 1 as we stand. Where are you with it?
So yeah, it's always a race that I struggle to have a real bullish opinion in, but I think it's the nature of the race. It is like almost the pinnacle of the festival. I mean, it probably is in most people's eyes. You do get some seriously high-rated horses in there, and even though there are some like sort of stats-wise that might not be able to win it, there are a good number of horses in here that have some strong 3-mile form at some point over the last couple of seasons. Bar Monolly, can't believe that's a 25 to 1 poke, absurd. But it's just quite hard to sort of pick it apart. I think you're right with the top 4 in the betting. That's why they are the top 4 in the betting. But Kenboy definitely deserves a mention, although he's been disappointing in those couple of runs. He's been sort of there or thereabouts. He wouldn't be a complete and absolute rogue winner if he won it. But we've talked about this before. You brought it up quite a few times that it looked like his chance to do it was last year, wasn't it? Yeah. But I mean, you just couldn't write him off. Native River, I know he'd have to be breaking rule books and all that sort of stuff. But I've always loved this horse. I did Batman and Morocco in the 4 miler when he beat Native River, but since then I sort of moved a bit more into the Native River camp. This is as good as I've seen him running, and I know his entry performance might bite fell and he beat nothing else in there, but he was miles clear. It was just in a game of his own. And then in the Denman Chase, I thought he was just looked really good again then. The ground's definitely going to be like at Cheltenham, but I'd imagine the way the rain's been coming, all those sorts of stuff, I think it's definitely going to be, there's going to be some ease in the ground anyway. They save a strip for the Gold Cup, all those bits and pieces. I can see why he's the price that he is. He'd have to go against the stats, but he definitely has a bit of a chance. I can't have Presenting Percy. I couldn't have him the year that he hacked up in the RSA. So if I can't get it right when he's in good form, there's no way I could be siding with him when he's in terrible form. Everything bar those ones is just an absolute no-hoper in there, isn't they? Annabelle Fly would have been interesting again because obviously it stays on, but Grand National's the main aim for that one. There is just nothing really sort of out of the woodwork at a big price I think you could look at for some value. I don't think there is. I think you're right. I think it is going to come from the top of the market. See, I wasn't that impressed with Native River and Newbury. I didn't think it was that. He's beaten Secret Investor by 2 3/4 lengths, and Secret Investor absolutely clattered the second last and the last fence, and he's still getting to with him. I know that was on good ground and he wants soft ground, but a 10-year-old for the Gold Cup, I just I'm yet to be convinced, to be honest. It's about young blood, the Gold Cup, isn't it? It is about young blood. For me, like I say, Santini dealt with Lost in Translation. There is nothing wrong with Album Photo, though. No, of course not.
And it's difficult to write Album Photo off because he's doing everything right. You just naturally always want to take on something at the head of the market, especially a horse that's won it last year. It would be remarkable if he won it again. I think the roof would come off the place. Back-to-back Gold Cup winner. Perhaps he can do it, but I just know where I'd want to be. Delta Work is just such a vastly improved horse compared to Santini. Considering Santini finished in front of him in the RSA, I just think he's so much improved. Lost in Translation, I would just say is I wouldn't give up on him after that pulled up effort in the King George. Point that off. That was his only try at a sharp track. All of his runs have come on big galloping track. So he definitely wasn't right that day. He was travelling a half a yard off the pace. Yeah. Horses that have, fell or pulled up or finished 5th or 6th in the King George have actually got a good record when going to the Gold Cup. So winners haven't, which is a strange one. So I wouldn't give up on him. I think he's a nice horse. I just think Delta Work could be the best of them.
Yeah, that's enough. I think the Lost in Translation thing as well. After he beat Bristol de Mai at Haydock, it looked like, Jesus, this horse is going to be probably short for a Gold Cup. It frustrates me sometimes because they did the right thing running him in the King George because you've got to find out, haven't you, just see how good he is. He was just so bad that day that they've obviously, I think they've given him a win procedure as well. They ought to have done anyway. But he was just so bad in the race, full stop. That's what worries me a little bit about him. That Delta Work did the same at the start of the season as well. He was the race. I can't remember where it was. It would have been down Raw, wouldn't it? Where Clanders Open was in the race as well. Delta Work was in there. Delta Work was just so poor. It's just some of those horses that, especially for like a Gold Cup, I just worry about horses that can throw in a really poor performance. I do think Album Photo's comeback run was so good. He definitely deserves to be favourite. He is the most likely winner of it. Willie Mullins' first winner in the Gold Cup, so it just makes you think, waiting for buses, they all come up at once. Maybe he's going to get backs with him. Delta Work, especially the size of him last year, I couldn't believe how small he was in the flesh. I saw him obviously when he won at the festival before. It was only a 6-year-old last year, wasn't he? So I thought, he's going to get a bit bigger for this season. So I'll be keen to see what he looks like in the flesh. Santini just has always looked like a potential Gold Cup type. He's definitely still got to find a little bit more. It's just one of them that, I'll be the same year after year after year with this. I will never be able to get a confident opinion of this because there are, and it's one of them as well. I'm adamant with a Gold Cup. You could run the race 2 or 3 times and you get different results. It's one of them just to maybe sit back, savour. That's not the sort of thing that people want to be listening to on here, but it's one of them that Friday of the Cheltenham Festival, Tuesday's notoriously the best days racing, and it's quite easy to get a few winners on there. Wednesday this year looks an absolute stonker. Thursday it starts to get a little bit trippier. But then when you get through to the Friday, you've got the Triumph in there, you've got an Albert Bartlett, which is notorious for throwing up dodgy prices. Do all right. But it's just the Gold Cup. It's one of them that it's almost like it's the getting out stakes for some people, isn't it? You've got a Fox Hunters, I think that's for this year, and you've got a Grand Daniel, you've got a Martin Pipe. It feels like this, right, fuck it, this is my chance to have a big bet. And I just urge people that you'll never be able to be confident in the Gold Cup, no matter what anyone says, how strong they try and make a case for it. They're all there with a chance. But
well put. It's definitely a boom or bust on Friday. On Fridays are definitely the boom or bust. You're either well up by the Friday or you are struggling. If you're struggling by the time you come to the Friday, tread very carefully.
But it does look like it's going to be a cracking renewal, and I do think it will be one that will look good, potentially with some of the younger blood in there. Like I do think Clanders Over will be better than he was last year, but I still just worry about whether he's actually good enough to win a Gold Cup. I know obviously he's been decent around Kempton twice, but that's the bit worry, isn't it? The fact that he's just done it around Kempton and he's not done it around Cheltenham. But it does look a decent race. The sort of build up to Cheltenham, the bookies do a lot of promotions, and every year they'll pinch a few horses in there that everyone starts getting wound up saying, oh, it's in all the specials, it can't win. 2 things I need to say on that is Album Photo's been in loads at the minute, but just ignore them. The second thing I need to say on it is the reason they're doing this is to balance their books. So everyone's thinking they're doing it because they want to take on a horse. It's all to do with their position in the race. So if the bookmakers have not taken a single bet on Album Photo all season because he's been too short in the first place, but they've taken loads on Santini at double figures, loads on Delta Work at double figure prices, and all of a sudden they're sat with 2 bad horses in the books of them, they'll stick Album Photo in all their specials just because they're trying to cover themselves for the books. So please stop reading into the specials that if a horse is in every single special, it just means that no one's put a bet on them before that season. It's not because they have got some inside information, they know it's going to go and win. Right, that's the Gold Cup. Of the ones we've mentioned there, none of them would interest me going back to a Ryanair. None of them are going to go back to a Ryanair. But obviously there might be some ones at bigger prices still in the Gold Cup that could go there. Real Steel doesn't go left and was poor today anyway. Chris's Dream would be in between what sort of trip it might go in there. But before we do move on to the Ryanair, you would love to see Bristol de Mai go for that, wouldn't you?
I would love to see Bristol de Mai go for it. I think Nigel Tristan-Davies is a donut if he goes for the Gold Cup. Look, the horse... Go back and watch every single run of Bristol de Mai at Cheltenham over 3 miles. He just doesn't get up that hill. Now, it's not that he doesn't like Cheltenham, as many people say. It's just that he doesn't stay the Gold Cup trip. He doesn't even really stay the 3 miles at Cheltenham. He always fades. Honestly, it's remarkable. If you go back and watch the videos all side by side, you'll see he does the same thing coming up the hill. If you do the same thing and go back and watch his JLT run from a few years ago, you watch him power up that hill. I know he was a younger horse then, but this horse just does not get the Gold Cup trip. Now, last year, people are going to say, well, he finished 3rd last year. But if you watch the race back, he made up all of his ground when they admitted the 3rd last fence. Okay, all on the flat. He clatters a fair few fences and it takes it out of him. He's not an proper out-and-out stayer, as mad as that sounds. I know he's a Betfair Chase winner, etc. but that's on a flat track. It's a completely different ball game to the undulations of Cheltenham.
Yep.
I drop him back to the Ryanair trip, let him bowl along. I think he will be a fantastic addition to the race, and I think he'd be a major player instead of just going and playing a bit part in the Gold Cup where he's going to probably finish sixth.
Absolutely. So, and do you know what? I mean, he probably wouldn't interest me in it. He was decent as a youngster over those sort of trips, but I think because they've run him so much now over the longer trip, I think his head would be a bit gone going in there. But I agree with you. That is the race that he should go in. You'd have to make a bit of a case for him. He is a big price for it, even if you were to take a non-run and no bet aspect for the sake of it, if he did run there. And of course, he has actually got the Ryanair entry. So I don't know. The fact that you picked up on it and mentioned it, it definitely needs to be reiterated again that if you're willing to tie up a few quid in a non-run and no bet market, Bristol Demise, there'd be worse bets than that for the Ryanair. But talking of the ones that aren't worse bets for the Ryanair, we'll talk about some of the good stuff. Obviously, we had Ascot today. That's the day we're filming during Storm Dennis. We obviously need to talk about the Ascot Chase. It was the best result of racing, the fact that Surname got up. It looked a nasty one, especially when his legs splayed a little bit above it. But before we talk about Surname, just to say well done for him getting back up. Traffic Fluid had riders on the Storm covered, do you reckon?
I don't know, because I wasn't riders on the Storm.
True.
But
107 it traded on the machine, Traffic Fluid.
Yeah, it probably did to me. He probably did, to be fair. But I was a little bit worried about riders on the Storm watching the race because he was hitting everything that was in front of him. He previously, if you watch him at Ascot, he's got into such a nice fluent rhythm and jumped really lovely, didn't he? Like, he's quite a big bowler at expenses. He wasn't like that today. He was going through everything. He's cutting everything, and honestly, he was losing about half a length or a length at every single fence. And I was worried about that until they started turning for home, and I thought, Christ, he must be a monster if he's still on the bridle here.
Yeah.
And then he came down the home straight, and I thought, he's still going really well. He's got to empty out. He's made too many expenses. He's done, and he did start to empty out. And then Traffic Fluid just stayed on. I need to watch the race back again, but I think Riders on the Storm is a pretty useful horse. I don't think he's a top class horse, but I think he's a pretty useful horse. In terms of the Ryanair, the only concern I would have is that 9 out of the last 10 years in this race, the ground has been good, or it's been good. So it's had some good in the going description. So that might be a slight concern. I have put him up as an anti-close bet. He did get pushed into 8-1 a couple of places after today's race, and he's back out to 10-1. So that would be the only concern for him. I think he wants a deep ground, and he needs to prove that he can. I know he's gone left-handed before, but he's a bit of a different horse now. And
well, that's it, yeah.
And to know, don't we?
Exactly, and he ran at the Cheltenham Festival last year, didn't he? He fell in that. He wouldn't settle that time.
Yeah.
Sam, he seems to get him to settle a little bit better, but there's been some interviews with him as well, and ultimately he tries to settle him for a period. And if the horse decides that he's not going to settle, he has to just let the horse do his own thing, which isn't an ideal way to be riding a horse when you talk about top graded stuff. I just found with him today, when he was coming sort of 2 out and he was sort of going clear, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, I've missed one here. This is going to absolutely hack up in the Ryanair. And then in about 3 strides when Traffic Fluid came between the middle of him and Surname, I was like, this has got absolutely no chance in the Ryanair. But it's just sad because of the weather today. You can physically see how testing it was towards the end of them. We're only 3 weeks out to the festival, well, less than that now. No horse can run in those conditions, do that sort of performance, and come back from it in 3 weeks for the festival. I reckon they'd be better to maybe save him for Aintree and think about the Melon Chase. Although
I agree. Even though I put him up anti-post, anything running this weekend, you would be really concerned about running in 3 weeks at a Cheltenham Festival.
That's it.
Just everywhere. Haydock, Ascot, it was just really, really tough. And it would worry me for Riders of the Storm.
That's it. And obviously, Surname did get up. He was obviously very, very disappointing there. I think it just really goes back to show that when him and Altior ran against each other, it was matched up as a clash of the Titans. We know how much it took out of Altior. We saw in the King George how much it might have taken out of Surname, although it's sort of blamed on the track whether he stayed. But we saw today that race, when those two had the match-up, would have definitely left its mark on him. So I think in a bit of a weird way, you could probably take it as a positive for Altior, given his performance in the game spirit. It looked like he was somewhere near it. It goes to show that Nicky Henderson did the right thing, being patient, giving him a bit of time off. But we didn't think Surname would be going to Cheltenham anyway, and obviously given that sort of a fall, he'll definitely not be seen again this season, I wouldn't have thought. There's obviously, I feel like this has really been pitched up as a race that's just a match between a Plutard and Min, and the market's definitely getting like that. Frodon, I did say last season, I was getting so frustrated because lots of people said at the beginning of the season, oh, it's such a shame there's not many more Grade 2 handicaps for horses like Frodon. And I was thinking, hang on, I think he potentially was a Grade 1 horse last season. It frustrated me a little bit because I didn't actually think he would win the Ryanair last year. I thought it looked a bit too good. I ended up falling in the footpad cabin last year, and obviously that didn't go so well. But he was such a good winner of it last year. It was nice and gutsy, all those bits and pieces. But I just think he's had his moment now. I can't have Frodon winning the Ryanair again. I know he likes it around Cheltenham. Min still hasn't won at Cheltenham. I do like Min for the Ryanair though. And a Plutard, the Chacun Pour Soi form, we'll find out a bit more on the Wednesday after the Champion Chase about how good that performance necessarily was. When he got beaten by Balioshin earlier in the season, when he was getting loads of weight, that was a race where I put Balioshin up in the week because I made him a 6-4 shot. There was a video put on the page, and the bookies priced him as a 4 or 5 to 1 poke. So, sort of odds-wise, when you look at that result when a Plutard was beaten, you might be disappointed, but it wouldn't be putting me off him in that respect. Balioshin had everything in his favour that day. It was a track that he likes, it's a race that he wins, all those bits and pieces. But I just worry whether a Plutard is actually good enough to be winning a type of race like this. And I know the Ryanair's sort of the in-between race, and we might not have the best horses winning it, but you can get 11 to 4 on him, but he's 9 to 4 shortest in lots of places. He just looks way too skinny for me for a horse that's coming off the back of winning a handicap at Cheltenham last year, regardless of how impressive he was. Min's probably short enough now as well. He's always been short throughout the season. Is there any value out there on anything else? Because you look at Chacun Pour Soi is going to go Champion Chase. Underso might come here, but I couldn't be having him. Politolog, no. St. Calvados, no. Silas Emery, well, he's got more chance of going in a Champion Hurdle than coming to a Ryanair, isn't he? ASO was close to it last year, but no. Yannicka ran today in that race. We could write off those horses from the weekend. There is just, is there something lurking at a bigger price that I'm completely missing that is some stonking value? Or is it literally a match between them two, do you think?
There's nothing really at a price, in my opinion. I like Sepage. I think he's an improving horse, but he's got too much to find on the ratings. The one concern I have with the Plutard is you beat Chacun Pour Soi over 2 miles. You win the Close Brothers over 2.5, that impressively. I'm yet to believe the Chacun Pour Soi form line, because I don't believe a horse can be that good over 2.5 and that good over 2 miles. So for me, there has to be something that I'm worried, that I'm confused about. And the Chacun Pour Soi form, Ordinary World, like I said to you before, was only 10 lengths behind. I know it says 10 lengths, but it was, it was eased off in the closing stages to make that a larger margin than it is. I'm confused about whether, I don't know whether I'm confused about if a Plutard's that good or Chacun Pour Soi's that good. You get where I'm coming from with that form?
Absolutely.
So that's a bit up in the air for me. The fact that he was able to finish third over at Punchestown over 3 miles as well is a slight concern. Now, you've got the benefit of the fact that I know he won a handicap, but he's got that Cheltenham form. Yep. That fits for him. That's going to be great for him. You can look at a Plutard 2 or 3 ways, yeah? You can look at him and say he's run over 3 different trips in 3 runs at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and he's been really good, finishing first, third, and second. Or you can look at it and go, and he's unexposed. Or you can look at it and go, well, he's picked his moments there. He was beaten by Balioshin. I know it was on return.
Yeah.
He was beaten 14 levels over. He might be a little bit tripless. Is he the highest level you need to win this? Do you know what I mean? The average rating of a winner of this is only £1 lower than that of the Champion Chase.
Yeah.
You do have to be a really, really good horse to win
That's
this.
it.
This, to me, I don't think Frodon's going to get the soft lead out in front that he wants. I think this is about Min now. I think this is Min's opportunity. If Min's good enough, I think Min will take all the beating. I do. Stepped up to 2.5, won his last 2 starts over that trip. Won't mind the ground. handles Cheltenham. Been an Altior shadow for a long time. He's got the official rating. He's beaten the horses. You know, he's. I think he wants this sort of trip nowadays, and I think he's a good bet at 7-2 actually.
Right, which is beautiful. So while I've just played a little bit coy there that I don't fancy anything at a bigger price, there is one that I fancy at a bigger price. I was just leaning a little bit to see if you were going to give it any sort of mention.
I'm going to go mad.
It's one of them that I mean, I know you wouldn't ever get on board with it because you weren't keen on it last year, and rightly so. But deep breath, people, because Hardline. But just from a price perspective, like, I think Min will win the Ryanair. I hope he does, but there's all those negatives about whether he's going to do it at Cheltenham, all those bits and pieces. Hardline, he was favourite for an Arkle last year. He was well backed in it. I'll bang on about this every week or every day now until Cheltenham goes off. Gigginstown 2 milers just don't happen for me. Gigginstown a bit further do all right for me. Hardline he's only beaten a couple of lengths by Min this season already. Now, obviously, based on that form, is he going to be able to get past Min again, or is he going to be able to actually beat him at Cheltenham? We just don't know. But it is an extra furlong on the Ryanair. He was staying on a little bit towards the end if you watched it, and you can get 40 to 1 on one and no bet about him. Or if you want to be ballsy and go for William Hill, you get 50 to 1. You could boost up to 55 to 1. Lord knows what sort of price he is on the machine. You could probably get, you know what, I don't think you get too much more than 50s on the machine. I just think he's one of those horses that, especially when we're talking about the preview nights that are coming up, all those bits and pieces, he might just be the type of horse where his price starts to slice up a little bit. And I know he was pants in the Arc. He was sent off favourite. He was crap. He's one of them that maybe just sulk a little bit in his racing. He's very inconsistent. But I just think, given the fact that we like Min, I think a lot of people like Min, he got close enough to him there. And I know it's only one line of form, but there are bits and pieces of Hardline's form over the years that are okay. I think he's got a bit of a squeak at 40, surely.
He was flattered that day. He was flattered. Min came off the 222-day break, fresh as a daisy, jumped poorly, and still beat Hardline. That's where I'd be with it. I think he was flattered by that. I really, really do. I know you look at this Hardline. You are gagging for Hardline to win at a Cheltenham Festival. You are. I
just think that it was one of them that there was last year. We did the Colossus preview and we recorded that plenty early. It took a little while to edit it. The time we did the preview for that, he was a 10 to 1 poke. By the time it got published, he was into bloody 3 to 1 favourite, and everyone was talking about him. I just feel a little bit about him. I definitely think there's something in him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been fancying him for an Arkle. He was better over the middle trip last year, to be fair to him, and his best form has come when he goes up a little bit further. He wasn't that far beaten by Labago Wild last season at Leopardstown. And I know obviously that doesn't necessarily work out now, but she was at the top of her game when he was doing that. He beat Us and Them comfortably. That's got decent placed graded form as a novice. Now, I obviously he's got enough to find, but he just looks like one of those horses. He is high enough officially rated to be competitive, and if you looked at the stats, you don't necessarily have to be the best horse in the world to be winning the Ryanair. That's why lots of horses come here and don't go for the Champion Chase or the Gold Cup. I just would suggest that from a value perspective, you could probably get, or you could go on the machine now and you could back him at 50 to 1. On the day, when he runs, he will be no bigger than 20 to 1. So you potentially, if you took the risk on the exchange, which isn't non-run no bet, and he does turn up, you could probably lay out of your bet and get a free run on a 33 to 1 shot. I mean, he could still get beat, but it could be a little value angle. I'm probably just trying to find something that might not be there, but I do think Hardline is overpriced. I do think he's going to come here. Gigginstown have done all right in the race. I reckon I'd give him a bit of a chance.
I'd rather bet Bristol to Mile at 50 to 1 than bet Hardline at 50 to 1.
Correct. But you mentioned about him before, and we were talking about the non-run and no bet angle. So you can get 33 to 1 Bristol to Mile, non-run and no bet with Sky Bet. And I'm still going to talk about him. You can get 40 to 1 Hardline with Bet365, non-run and no bet, and they are best odds guaranteed. Now, if you were going to just chuck away, even if it's a fiver on the race, you did £2.50, you split it between the two of them. I'm not a massive fan of each way betting. I think you need to be ballsy. If you think a horse is going to win, it's going to win. I know lots of people do like it each way, but you could potentially Dutch the pair of them, couldn't you, at bigger prices, rather than trying to pick between a Plutard or Min of where you're going to stick your fiver.
Yeah, you could have a fiver on a Gold Cup third dropping back in trip, or you could have a fiver on a Arkle 7th beating 38 lengths.
And that's exactly it. But
I would put you off anything at bigger prices. They're bigger prices for, you know what I mean? Because there's going to be some negatives along with these horses because they're bigger prices. But never put anyone off 30 for anyone shot on a serious note.
And I do think, like I say, the prices they are, especially Bristol to my 33s. If he came to the race, we all know he would be one of them. He'd go off single figures probably. It'd be 10, 12 to 1 tops, maybe like an 8 to 1 post. So it potentially is just a bit of a value angle. We don't need to sit here and tell people that a Plutard and Min have got a chance, although we already have. Everyone knows this. The sort of people that are watching these previews aren't. I don't want to be people that are just like people that just bet on a Sunday, just pick a number and a name. People that put the effort in to watch these sort of things, they know what they're talking about as well. They just want us to reconfirm what it is and maybe find out a little bit more. So yeah, when Hardline beats Bristol to Mai, we've nailed it. That's a forecast for you. But I think it's right with the Ryanair. I do think the Plutard and Min are the obvious ones, all those bits and pieces. I just think the prices are too skinny on either of them. I couldn't be confident if someone gave me a £500 free bet where I'd want to stick it in this race. It wouldn't be on Hardline, I know that much. But from the front of the market, I would probably be leaning more towards Min. But then you've got the Cheltenham Festival winning form from a Plutard. Tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll move down now in trip. We're going to go for the Champion Chase. And my word, Daryl Carter, this is an absolute peach, isn't it? So the negative of it being an absolute peach is 11 to 12. You could get 5 to 1 Altior at the start of the season with William Hill to win the Champion Chase. I don't know whether that was because there was talk about him stepping up in triple, whatever naffness it was. It just looked an absolute steal of a price. And in my head, I'm thinking, we don't know about Chacun Pour Soi. Maybe that could bomb. Maybe it won't even turn up at the festival. It's got no festival form. We'll put him to one side. Defi Desoy, I did like him, but I didn't expect him to be as good as he is over 2 miles, in fairness to him. I thought he might pick up some stuff early in the season, but I didn't expect him to carry on as much as he has. Thought, he might end up in a Ryanair. The fact that those horses have come out, and to be fair, they both answered the questions they need to. Chacun Pour Soi put Min to bed off a really quick pace, and although we don't know enough about him to think that he's going to be winning the Champion Chase, he did what he needed to do after being beaten by a Plutard. He came out and he won, and it was a pretty visually impressive performance. Definitely what he did to Altior at Ascot, Undersow at Ascot, again, visually looked like it was quite good, didn't it? But then you could pick that a piece of it. But the fact that Altior is now a 2 to 1 poke after getting beat by Surname, missing engagements in between, winning a game spirit like he probably should have done, just lets you know that 5 to 1 at the beginning of the season about Altior for a Champion Chase was absurd. Imagine Defi had gone to the Ryanair, and imagine Chacun Pour Soi hadn't turned up. Altior would have been odds on, wouldn't he?
Oh, heavily, yeah.
But they are here, aren't they? It's good. It has been for a little while, and it's pretty much like 2 to 1. Any one of the three. Chacun Pour Soi's moved out a little bit. Who do you think of the three of them, if you had to say right now, you can only pick one horse and you're never allowed to change opinion, well, until after the festival, you've got to stick with it forever, because I know I might chop and change a little bit, but I will be sticking with Altior all the way through. Who, right now, as it stands, wins the Champion Chase?
Altior.
Yeah!
I have flipped back and forward between the three, right, throughout the season. And then when I was doing all the odds checker work and that, and writing out all the key trials and stuff, and going back through all the winners and looking at all, where they prepped and all this sort of stuff, Defi Desoy just fits everything.
Oh, yeah.
There is not one negative you could probably find with Defi Desoy. No. And it's really difficult to try and get your brain to overcome that and back something else, right? But then I go back through his form, and I'm thinking, right, look at the Ascot run, okay? I think we can write that off, okay? He could have won how he liked. Underside for me, didn't give his running. He probably had a little bit left on him from the Tingle Creek, perhaps. I know it was a long time in between, but he's 12 years old now. Perhaps it just left a little bit of a mark on it. It was a really good battle up the hill that day at Sandown. Yeah. I think that's the true running of Defi Desoy and Underside. I think you can rate that race properly. And then I look back at when Altior beat a younger Undersow in the Tingle Creek by 4 lengths, and I think it's just that finishing kick. It's different. it's different. He's got something about him that is just majestic. He always looks like he's going to get beat, which is a concern. I mean, he didn't do that when he was younger, so that is a worry. But when he wants to, he can quicken away. Now, Chacun Pour Soi for me is the third of the three. I think, because I think as Betfair have got it 2-1, 9-4, 11-4. I think that's probably in my head about right, because Chacun Pour Soi could be anything, right? Could be anything, but that Cheltenham form is so important. We don't know if he's going to travel over well, but you've got all those added extras with Chacun Pour Soi, and the fact that we've only seen him 4 times in Ireland. So that's just a concern for me. It could be the second coming, but until he runs downhill 3 out of Cheltenham, or you know what I mean, you just don't know with him. With Defi the Saw and Alto, you don't have that issue.
Yeah.
Only issue you've got with Defi is he good enough? Are you accepting? Let me ask you this: are you accepting back at Punchestown last year? Are you accepting that Defi had a hard season? He went to Punchestown and was beaten by Chacun Pour Soi, or are you accepting that he was beaten by a better horse that day?
Well, the funny thing was, I backed Chacun Pour Soi that day, simply for the fact that, I mean, you'd be a bit balmy to do it, but I did think Arkle winner, JLT winner in there. They've had plenty of running. That was my sort of angle towards it. And Chacun Pour Soi was so impressive before, sort of in the could be anything category. I think he was about 13-2, 7-1 the night before. And I just thought, Barry Geraghty, when he rides Defi de Soul, sometimes I don't give him enough credit, to be fair to him, but sometimes he maybe sits on a horse thinking he's got a bit more than he has. He doesn't really give him a lot of respect. And because he's been riding Defi for so long, since Richard Johnson rode him to win the Triumph, I was adamant that maybe they would have talked about it. How does he like to be ridden, all that sort of stuff? Because I just thought that Richard Johnson ordinarily would have been a bit more aggressive on Defi de Soul than he was. And luckily that day I did get it right. They maybe gave him a little bit too much respect, Chacun Pour Soi. I just think he got it easy up front, out on his own. And I wouldn't have categorically said that if these two face off against each other this season, that form would stand up. I think that Defi could be better than Chacun Pour Soi, but until they go up against each other, Chacun Pour Soi may end up just being a bit of a beast. Now, the fact that a Plutard got him beat makes you realise that he isn't an Altior. He isn't the standard of a Defi as far as I'm concerned. His min performance was very good, what he did. But you've still got to remember that, and it will come, but Willie Money still hasn't trained a champion chase winner. And I know he's had the likes of Duvan that have had injuries and all those bits and pieces. It just worries me slightly that I just don't know whether Chacun Pour Soi is going to be good enough. And I don't think maybe back at Cheltenham, the fact he hasn't run there, tactically, all those bits and pieces, I just don't know whether they could better get it right with him. Whereas Altior can just sit wherever he wants. Like you say, he's going to come off it a little bit at some point. But I just reckon that Chacun Pour Soi will probably be right up on the pace, and he'll just set it up for Defi and Altior. Barry Geraghty will sit next to Nico on Altior, try and get in front of Altior, I reckon, a little bit earlier. But it's those afterburners. I cannot believe, I watch it back now, the race last year when Altior went up with the pace, and he had to do that because the only way that someone was going to beat Altior was to be in front of him. I said that's what Min should have done. Obviously, with surname at Ascot, that was always going to happen. He was in front. But once Altior gets to you, you're stuffed. You're not going to be able to get past him again. So he did loads of donkey work last year. I just couldn't believe that once he got headed, I know he's got the afterburners, all that sort of stuff, but how he got back up and how almost easily he won it. So I can just only expect that after the final fence, he's going to be gone. And there's a few times that Defi, even as a novice, tied up a little bit when he hit the front. And there's a few, even in the Tingle Creek, he tied up a little bit when he hit the front there. I would just think that for Defi to win this, he's literally got to time it to the millisecond. Whereas Altior could probably mess a couple of bits up, and I still think he'd be good enough to win it.
I totally agree. with that. And Barry's going to have to time everything. They're going to have to come down to the last together, or I can see them coming down to the last together. Defi de Soul sitting about 3/4 of a length off Altior, and as they jump, Barry Defi will kick and try and go. That's why I think it will happen, and it's that moment where it takes Altior that couple of seconds or that second and a half to turn them afterburners on. But once he's chasing something, he's going to get it, isn't he?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
That's the difference, isn't it? Like you say, once Defi's, this is what's mad about it, because Defi's going to have to kick after jumping the last, right? And he's going to have to do Altior for a toe up the hill. Okay, but then look, you say definitely might tie up a little bit in front, and you don't want the only horse in this race you would not want chasing like that hill if you're tying up is Altior.
Absolutely, and that is the worrying thing. And if you do get a chance to go back and watch them, I'm going to stick some clips and pieces up for the championship races because it's well worth looking back what's happened this season and previously. But it is just the fact. Now I know Deffy's probably better class. Well, he is. He's better class than Sobral and Politlog with the horses that were in and around him. But Altior, Nico went on, didn't he? A few out. Then they all jumped at him at the last, and then it was the fact that he managed to regain it after. It is that timing of Barry Geraghty that he's got. If he jumps the last, then he might be able to catch Altior out, just get in front. It literally could just be down to how they jump the last. But I do worry the difference in time between the final flight and the finish line, whether he'll tie up. And I do think Altior will pick him up. But Barry might even decide to say, do you know what, actually, I'm going to have to be in front by the time we jump the last, just to make sure that if Altior's a bit slow or whatever, I can nick a few lengths and then it's enough of the lead. And I think if he sends him too soon, he could be a bit stuffed. But it just looks a really fascinating race. It is absolutely between those three in the betting. I was disappointed with Silas Emery when he fell in the Dublin Chase because I pitched him as a horse that could be a potential player. He ran okay in that hurdle race day, didn't he? Didn't really blow anyone away, but whether they supplement him for that or not, I don't know. I'd still prefer to see him running the Champion Chase, to be honest. But there's nothing at bigger prices that interest me in the slightest. And I know there can potentially be some each-way value in these races, but when we're talking about that, it's normally when we've got a short price favourite and then there's a couple of bad second and third favourites. This year, like you say, Altior Fab, Defi de Soy second Fab, Chacun Poursoir third Fab. There is no other way to put it, I don't think.
No, it's the way it's got to be. It is what it is, I think. I mean, a lot of people say Dynamite Dollars will run well, but is he going to beat only the front three?
No, and he was one right at the beginning of the season. I did a long range lookout. I said he was 50 to 1 with William Hill. You could boost him to 55. I just said Nichols said at the beginning of the season he was going to run in the Game Spirit and then go to Cheltenham. Thought it was. I just like I say pictured it that it was just going to be Altior in the race. The other two might not necessarily get it, but even if they did, he'd shorten up. I knew he wouldn't be any bigger than 25s now after the Game Spirit. So he looked like a bit of a value play. But Nichols put some comments out before the Game Spirit saying that this will tell us whether we need to step up in trip or not, and I think it will. And then there was another little side comment about something like the Melin Chase might suit him. So I wonder, A, if they'll even go to Cheltenham, and B, if they go to Cheltenham, whether they're going to really try and sort of go for it, because they might be thinking in the back of their minds, Aintree might be one for him. But I suppose if you're in a Champion Chase and you've got a chance of being there or thereabouts, no jockey's going to go easy on them, are they?
No.
And the other thing with the Melin Chase, Nicky Henderson said it, that they're thinking about the Melin with Altior because they had a quiet season, and obviously he's not getting any younger. So potentially, if Min does do the business in the Ryanair and Altior does the business in the Champion Chase, we get to finally get the clash of the two of them again. So it could be quite a good little pointer towards what's going to happen at Aintree as well. But Champion Chase, again, it's slightly not. Well, I don't think it's boring, to be honest. The market's formed now because although we're a couple of weeks out and it's still classed as anti-post betting, but we are literally a couple of weeks away from the festival now, and people have been talking about it. I know we have. We've been banging on about it for the last 6-7 months. So the market should be about right by now, and if they're not, then we should be picking up on those little loopholes. But yeah, boom. It's good to know that Altior's going to win. So we're going to smash onto the hurdle races now. So we've got the Champion Hurdle, the Stairs Hurdle, and the Mares Hurdle.
Can we pause? Please.
Oh, yeah. So that's what I was going to say. We're going to do them, but we'll cut it into a second episode. So we'll do the chase stuff first, and then we'll do the hurdly stuff.